Well, just like that, we're already past the halfway point of the season as we head into round number 9 at Indianapolis. Also, it's the first of 3 East-West showdowns, so there should be a lot to look forward to there. And we have a slew of injury updates to go through. We're also going to bring you guys our fantasy statistics and updates, go through the top contenders, talk about what we saw at press day. There's all kinds of stuff to get into, so let's break it down. All right, so the first thing we're going to get into is our injury updates. And unfortunately, there is quite a few to go over. So first, let's talk about Levi Kitchen. We saw him go down really hard in Daytona. Really hated to see that. Unfortunately, he did end up breaking his collarbone, and he also fractured some vertebrae in his upper back. So obviously, he's not going to be competing this weekend. And then Cameron Mcadoo, he kind of overshot that wall jump looking thing, and I believe that's when he re-injured his knee. He did qualify for the main event, but he basically kind of died on that. Sounds like he probably damaged his knee even further. Either way, he's going to go ahead and get reconstruction surgery. Actually, he already did get reconstruction surgery, so he will be out for a very long time. Might see him try to come back at the end of motocross and get some points for SMX, but maybe not. Now, as far as Nate Thrasher, he did race last weekend, but he was coming fresh off of a finger surgery. He's still up there in the points, and he did manage an 8th place finish, so shout out to him. He's going to go for it again this weekend. Then switching back to the rest of the pro circuit team, Drew Adams is still out with his broken collarbone. And Ty Masterpool is also out. He's back on the bike with that finger injury, but he will not be racing either. Then as far as Jordon Smith, we saw him go down hard in the whip section a couple of weeks back. He is going to be out with a rib injury, and he did also damage his spleen. I believe he also punctured his lung with the broken rib. So definitely some pretty gnarly injuries, but there was some speculation that he would try to line up. He did make it sound like he wanted to. But either way, he's not going to be racing this weekend. And then I just want to give a quick shout out to Anthony Bourdon. We did already cover this injury, but it was absolutely massive. He went down during a practice crash. He pretty much destroyed his pelvis, his hip, and he also had some back injuries. Really hate to see that. It looked really gnarly. He's going to be out. And then as far as Julien Beaumer, he is dealing with that shoulder injury. He did dislocate his shoulder. He did race and still managed to get a 6th. Now, it sounds like he has not ridden since the last time they raced in Arlington, but he is only 6 points back, and he is going to go for it this weekend. Then Nick Romano did tear up his knee a couple of rounds back. He hasn't raced since then, but it sounds like he's going to be trying to return soon, just not this weekend. And we have a whole slew of riders that we kind of already know they're out, what their injuries are, but just going to go through them so we don't forget them. We got Pierce Brown, Casey Cochran, Devin Simonson, Jalek Swoll, Ryder DeFrancisco, Talon Hawkins, Billy Laninovich, Styles Robertson, Noah Viney, and Robbie Wageman. Moving on to the 450 class, thankfully the list is a lot shorter, but unfortunately it is a lot of the top guys. So obviously we know the Lawrence brothers, Eli Tomac, Jorge Prado, and Cade Clayson are all out. And Christian Craig is still coming back from that knee injury. He's back on the bike, and he'll be looking to return in Birmingham. Moving on to our top contenders. Remember, we do have an East-West showdown, so there's a lot of 250 guys to talk about. Starting off with the East Coast class, we have Max Anstie, who has 63 points. He looked really good at Daytona last weekend. Unfortunately, he did go down off the start. He did end up benefiting from the red flag situation, which was really unfortunate to see as far as Levi Kitchen, but at least it did feel like he got some redemption from the other red flag where he kind of got screwed out of a win. He was definitely able to salvage a little bit more points than he would have had the red flag not came out. The next guy behind him in the points is Tom Vialle, who is starting to look like he might be coming to life. He's only 6 points back of Max Anstie, so very much in this title chase. He looked like he might be able to win the race last weekend. He did get his first ever career win at Daytona last year. It's going to be really interesting to see how he can get through this East to West showdown. I have a feeling he's going to probably struggle a little bit, but maybe he can prove me wrong. Either way, if he can get through the East-West showdown with, say, a top 5, I think he's really going to be in this title fight. But if not, then things might get tough for him. Then in third, we have Chance Hymas. So I was pretty skeptical about him competing in Supercross this year. I feel like it was a little bit too quick of a return from his ACL reconstruction. But he's only 13 points back from the championship points leader, and he looks a lot better than he did last year in Supercross. And if he can keep building and getting stronger as he races his way into shape, and if his knee holds up, This looks like it could play out really good for him. I wish him all the best, and it'll be interesting to see if he can continue to improve throughout the Supercross season. Then right behind him, we have RJ Hampshire, who did end up getting a win last week. It was much needed. Really cool to see. He's only 14 points out of the championship right now. And honestly, he does feel like kind of the biggest title threat to Max Anstie right now. Tom Vialle could definitely turn the tables on that pretty quickly. With that being said, both of those guys are your defending champions, so gonna have to keep an eye on both of them. I just really hope that RJ doesn't RJ this weekend. With it being a deeper field, he could definitely lose a lot of points if he pulls off something like he did at round number 1, makes a big mistake, it's gonna be catastrophic. So hopefully he can just get out front, get a good result, and stay in this title fight. Then not too far behind him, we have Nate Thrasher, who did end up breaking his finger and did get surgery to get that repaired and is back racing. So he's only 18 points out of the championship lead right now, still technically in the title fight. I don't expect him to stay this close for much longer, but you gotta respect the grind. He's definitely gritting it out. He looks pretty good, and you can't really count him out to just come out of nowhere and get a win by the end of the season. Then only 20 points out of the championship lead, we have Seth Hammaker. And man, can we get some bubble wrap? Can we get a prayer chain for this man? Please, everybody, let's just try to get Seth Hammaker through the Supercross season safely. Man, that was absolutely heartbreaking and hard to watch to see Levi Kitchen go down like that at Daytona with Mitch on the screen. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what to say about this whole Pro Circuit curse thing. But man, it seems like there's a little bit more than something that's normal going on here. Either way, Seth Hammaker is the last remaining healthy Pro Circuit rider. Yes, Garrett Marchbanks is also racing tonight, but he is coming back from an injury. He's already missed one race this year from an injury. So Seth, please stay safe out there. Then behind him, we have Cullin Park, and he's only 24 points out of the lead. So really cool to see him doing so good. He did get taken out by Austin Fortner at the end of one of the rounds not too long ago, so he lost a couple of points there. But in general, he's been doing very good. He looks solid, and I would not be surprised to see him get a top 5 at some point. And then the last guy we're going to talk about in this coast, even though there is a lot more left because we have a lot more to get to, is going to be Carson Mumford. So Mumford, he's only 26 points back. He's right there behind Cullin Park. Same thing could be said for him. They're kind of doing the same thing. They both look really good. They both could get a top 5, and I'm here for it either way. Like I said, we have a lot more guys to talk about, but we're going to move on to the West Coast because there's a lot of guys over here too. So at the top, we have Haiden Deegan with 109 points. Looks really good. Looks like he flipped a switch. I don't know how much of it is from switching back to training with Swanee. I feel like it could just be from being able to ride with the group of riders, but either way, he looked like he was definitely dominant. Part of that could have been highlighted a little bit further by the fact that Julien Beaumer was not able to push the pace like he normally would, having the fact that Cole Davies wasn't getting up towards the front really until the final main, and Jordon Smith had crashed out, and maybe it was just the right scenario for Haiden to look a little bit better than he actually was. But either way, he was coming from way in the back of the pack and winning. So I feel like he could probably come out and dominate tonight. It's going to be interesting to see exactly what happens. If he comes out and puts a stamp on it tonight with the whole East-West showdown thing, then it's going to be hard to argue the fact that he is the best 250 rider right now. I'm really curious to see exactly what happens. If Julien Beaumer can't ride up to his full potential tonight, he has a really big lead over the rest of the field in the points, so it might be kind of a low pressure situation for him. Keep an eye on that as we move into the night show. Then behind him, we have Julien Beaumer, who is still only 6 points behind him. So while he didn't have a great showing the last time we saw him, maybe he can hang in here. I don't know that his shoulder is going to get much better. I feel like we have kind of a Cameron Mcadoo situation, but maybe not quite as extreme since it's his shoulder, and I don't know how much ligament damage he has, where Mcadoo had a fully torn ACL. Hopefully, the adrenaline will kick in and he can ride to his full potential. He's gonna need a good finish to try to stay in this championship fight. Then the next guy behind him, we have Cole Davies, and he's 22 points back. So while he looks very good and capable of winning, it's going to be extremely hard for him to get back in this title fight. But even if he can't, that is far from disappointing. He's been absolutely killing it. He looks really good for a rookie, and it seems like the sky is the limit for him. Then behind him, only 1 point behind, is going to be Joe Shimoda. Hopefully his finger is feeling a lot better. Maybe we can start to see some of that raw speed that we saw at round number 1. How cool would it be if we saw Joe Shimoda come out and win the East-West Showdown? And then right behind Joe, we have Coty Schock. And man, I can't say enough good things about Coty Schock. I've been a huge fan of Coty's since last year. I started following his story in the offseason, and I had no idea that he was going to be able to perform as good as he did in Supercross. But ever since we saw him finish 3rd in the championship, I've been absolutely rooting for him, and it seemed like he's getting better and better at Supercross. And that 2nd place finish at the Triple Crown pretty much backs all that up. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does in this showdown. If he can get a top 5, I feel like that'd be a really good finish. We saw him do really good at Daytona. I think he was 14th on the 450, well, in the 450 class on his 250. So absolutely no joke there. He's definitely killing it. And he's only 2 points away from being 3rd in the championship once again. The next closest guy behind him is going to be Michael Mosiman, and he is 37 points back, so quite a bit further than the rest of these guys. But with that being said, he did just get a podium at the last round that they raced. I do expect him to be relatively hit and miss moving forward, but when he does hit, he's probably going to hit really well. Awesome to see. Love that for Michael. It's really cool to see that he was able to kind of salvage his career. Hopefully he can keep that momentum going as we move forward. Then the next guy behind Mosiman is going to be Garrett Marchbanks. And even though Garrett did miss a race, he still made his way up in the points. He is 49 points back. Hopefully he can start to show some good results in Supercross. I've always questioned him being in the 250 class in Supercross, given that he's a larger rider. We have seen him win a race before, but generally speaking, it seems like he does struggle to get off the line. It'll be really interesting to see exactly how that plays out with it being a showdown tonight. Moving on to the 450 class, at the top we have Cooper Webb, and he has extended his points lead to 10 points over Chase Sexton. He has a total of 168 points, and he's just doing what Cooper Webb does. He just chips away. He's a bulldog. He never lets go. It looked like he was actually going to come back and win that Daytona round. Unfortunately, he did end up getting another 2nd place. So man, that's got to be a bummer for him. But it's hard to hate on Ken Roczen when you see him get that win. For someone that feels like he should have won so many more things with how good of a rider he has been, it's awesome to see Ken Roczen get that done. But anyways, to finish what I was saying about Cooper Webb, he is killing it. He looks really good. So going to be interesting to see exactly how he gets through these next few East Coast rounds. And it's going to be interesting to see how he manages a double-digit points lead. Then behind him, we have Chase Sexton, who we just established is 10 points back. So man, it sucks to see, but it seems like Chase just keeps making mistake after mistake after mistake. While they are relatively different and seemingly unrelated, when you're consistently making mistakes, doesn't that just make it somewhat related too? So anyways, listening to Chase talk about it, as far as what happened last week at Daytona in the main event, he said that he just wasn't feeling very good after the crash, and he didn't want to make another mistake, and he went ahead and backed it down and brought it in. While it seemed like he was doing a little bit more than just backing it down, either way, maybe that's a good thing that he was able to realize, hey, I need to stop making mistakes, but hard to say exactly what kind of headspace he's in right now. He does look like he's on the verge of a mental breakdown at times. But one thing that is not hard to figure out is that he's generally speaking the fastest guy out there. So at least he has that going for him. Would not be surprised at all if he ends up winning tonight. All he has to do is go on a win streak of say 3 or 4 races. And even if Cooper Webb finishes right behind him every single time, he will take over the points lead with plenty of races to go. But we have hardly seen anybody even win 2 races in a row so far this year. So that's probably easier said than done. Either way, look for Chase to be up at the front tonight. Hopefully he doesn't make another mistake. And then the next guy we got to give a huge shout out to, which is Ken Roczen. He's now only 16 points back. He was almost a full race back not that long ago after that horrible night in Tampa when his chain came off. And now he's clawed his way back to be well within striking distance of this championship. It was awesome to see him get that win at Daytona, and while the points leader did finish right behind him, it doesn't really matter when you are still doing this good and just killing it. Nobody can really count you out. Also, statistically, Ken Roczen is really good here. We'll get into that a little bit more when we get into the fantasy statistics, but just know that it could be another good night for Kenny. And then in fourth, we have Jason Anderson, who is way back, 43 points back. He's still doing his thing. He's still an outside podium threat, top 5 guy, but it's really hard to say exactly what we can expect from him each week. And then right behind him, only 1 point behind him, we have Malcolm Stewart. So how cool would it be to see Malcolm start to move into fourth in the championship? It's been really cool to see him get that win. He also got another podium, but other than that, he hasn't looked exceptionally good. I'm really curious to see if the whoop section tonight will play into his advantage. I feel like it might, so keep your eye on Malcolm Stewart tonight. And then finishing off this tight little points battle, only 2 points behind Malcolm Stewart, we have Justin Cooper. I'm gonna say the same thing I've pretty much been saying all year. Looks really good, looks kind of bad in the whoops. How good would he be if he could get through the whoops? And then the next guy, we have another Justin with Justin Barcia, but he is 57 points back, so quite a bit further from Justin Cooper and just kind of in his own little world. Gonna be interesting to see if he can turn things around and start to be a top 5 guy at any point in the season. Either way, it's always exciting to see him out there. And then behind him, we have the third Justin of Justin Hill. And man, I love seeing Justin Hill out there. He's 67 points back, so only 10 points behind Justin Barcia. And I'm really excited to see how he can do on this track. I feel like it might break down and be a little bit more technical and kind of play into his hand. Hopefully he can get a good start and maybe we can see another top 5. Then behind him, we have Aaron Plessinger, and he is 80 points back at the championship. Now, it was absolutely awesome to see him get on the podium last weekend. Jumps on this podium with that Dale Earnhardt t-shirt, doing his thing, getting all the crowd cheers. So love that for AP. I have to expect moving forward, he's probably going to be right inside that top 5, fighting for podiums, and I would love to see him get another race win. Then rounding out your top 10, 88 points back, we have Joey Savatgy. And I feel like Joey Savatgy is still a very underrated Supercross rider. I do expect him to have a couple flashy results by the time we're done with the season. And the fact that he's top 10 in the points kind of speaks for itself. I'm just really happy that he didn't get injured when he died on that quad a couple of rounds back. That was really scary. So love to still have him in the series. Not really sure exactly what to expect out of him tonight, but either way, you can never count him out. All right, now let's talk about some things that we could take away from what we saw at press day. So the first thing that I want to talk about is it looks like they're going to be working with Justin Brayton and possibly Adam Cianciarulo in the future for them to be going ahead and doing some track preview stuff. We saw Justin Brayton riding in press day on a factory Honda, so that was really cool. We actually got to see a couple passes through the whoop section, which you normally don't get to see in press day. So some pretty cool stuff going on there. It'll be interesting to see exactly what happens with that moving forward. The next thing that grabbed my attention besides that is that the track was already extremely rutted up. Nothing that is super surprising. We do expect that from Indianapolis and a lot of these East Coast tracks, but it was just press day. It was a partial track schedule. They're not riding the whole track. And it's not like the full load was on the track and not everybody was there, and it wasn't like they were riding all day. So pretty interesting to see the track breaking down so much. I definitely expect there to be a lot of ruts and the racing to slow down, especially as the night goes on. And with that extra line choice is going to come more line options, specifically the rhythm section after they go over the finish line and under the bridge. It's a relatively short straightaway, but it looks like there's at least 3 option lines through there, and it leads into a bull turn. So look for guys to be block passing in that bull turn. And then even the straightaway afterwards is 5 singles, so you can either double triple or triple double. And it looks like generally guys are probably going to be tripling in, but if that gets really rutted out, you could probably double in and then triple out. Another thing that I thought was worth noting was that now that we could actually see the way that they built the track, the wall jump before the whip section does look like it'll be pretty effective. I was kind of wondering if there was a chance that guys could possibly jump from that single into the whip section, but based off of the way that it looks right now, definitely not looking like it's going to be an option, and I don't expect these guys to be able to carry an abundance of speed into the whip section like some people may have speculated that they could. I don't think it will be that different than coming right out of a turn into the whips. There's definitely a nice flat section leading into the whips, but it's not like a huge run up to it. And the one thing that I also noticed is that there's not really one full length rhythm section. They're all kind of short. So it will be interesting to see exactly how that shakes out. One last thing we got to get out of the way before we get into our statistics is the schedule. So if you guys want to watch Race Day Live, that's going to be kicking off at 1:30 Eastern. And the night show itself will be at 7 o'clock Eastern. Make sure you have your picks in by then. The weather is not exactly a concern because we're in a dome. I don't know if it's truly a dome, but anyways, there's a roof, so no weather. Moving on to our statistics. So the first guy we're going to talk about is going to be Cooper Webb. The interesting thing about Cooper Webb is that he has finished in first or second in the last 5 races. We've seen him be extremely consistent when compared to everybody else. The only one that could really kind of compare to his consistency is Ken Roczen, but even with that, Ken has crashed. Cooper Webb has not, unless you want to count his little tuck in the front on the start of his heat race last weekend, but other than that, he has not crashed all season long. The one thing worth noting is that his last 3 finishes in Indianapolis haven't been that great. He's only had a best finish of 3rd, and the other 2 finishes were 5th. So maybe that's worth noting, but it does look like this could be a Cooper Webb style of track. So I definitely would not count him out. He has the momentum, and to be honest, I think you'd be kind of crazy to not at least think he's going to be on the podium. Next, we got to talk about Chase Sexton. So his last 5 finishes have been a 1, 5, 3, 3, and another 5th last weekend at Daytona. Definitely kind of concerning, especially if you add in the fact that his last 3 Indianapolis results are 4, 10, 3. Nothing really pointing towards him to be doing good this week. He's had pretty much some sort of mistake every weekend for the last 4 weeks in a row. But then again, he does have the speed, and it's almost like the law of averages are gonna just have to give him a good weekend at this point. So maybe you guys are feeling frisky. Maybe you want to put him on the top of the box. I can't tell you not to. He's definitely capable of winning, and I myself might be putting him up there. I'm still trying to figure that out. But as we move on to Ken Roczen, it's gonna be hard to think that you shouldn't put him on top of the box. So looking at Ken, obviously he's coming off that awesome win last weekend at Daytona, but as I alluded to earlier on in the show, he's been absolutely lights out at Indianapolis. His last 5 finishes, keeping in mind he did miss one, is 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, and that's with him sweeping the residency back in 2021, I believe. Either way, the last 5 times he's lined up here, his worst finish is a 2nd place, and that's only happened 1 time. You couple that with the fact that he's only been off of the podium once this whole season, other than the time when he crashed in Tampa, and it's really hard to imagine him not at least contending for the win tonight. Next, we have a pretty big gap in my confidence with these guys, back to Jason Anderson, but he definitely could get on the podium. He's already done that 3 times this year. But then if you look back at his last 5 finishes, things aren't looking as convincing. He's gone 8, 11, 6, 3, 7. So with that in mind, I definitely think you could put him in the top 5. But then again, he's only done that 1 time in the last 5 races. So hard to say exactly what you guys should do there, but that's what I could tell you about him. Then as far as Malcolm Stewart, his last 5 finishes are 10, 9, 1, 4, 6. So he did look like he got things turned around a bit last weekend at Daytona. Definitely could see him coming on strong tonight. I would have liked to see them carrying a little bit more speed into the whip section. I feel like he probably could have capitalized on that. Maybe he still can, but either way, it's going to be interesting to see exactly what he could do. I feel like he could be in your top 5, but I'm not sure that he's the best fit. And the reason why I say that is because looking at Justin Cooper, his last 4 finishes have been 4-4, 5-4. He's been in the top 5 4 out of the last 4 weekends. He looks really strong. I actually put him in 4th in this show last week, and he ended up nailing that spot for me. So that was awesome to see. He's riding really good. He's led 25 laps this year. Looking at his results last year at Indianapolis, he did get 10th when he was riding a lot better at some of the other rounds. So keep that in mind. Maybe just temper your expectations with this style of track, but his consistency is showing that he is a top 5 guy. Moving on to Aaron Plessinger, his last 5 finishes have been 9, 8, 9, 7, and then he just blindsides us all with the podium at Daytona. So not hating on that, it was absolutely cool to see him get on the podium. Lots of fun to see that happen, but that was the first podium that he's gotten in 24 rounds of Supercross racing. So will we see another drought like that? I'm not sure. I'm not wishing that upon him, but I do not recommend putting him on the podium unless you have a really good gut feeling. Maybe he keeps the ball rolling. I do expect him to have more momentum moving forward, and at the very least, I expect him to be either in the top 5 or a lot closer to the top 5, but I still don't know that I'm even gonna consider putting him in my top 5. Now, keep in mind, the wild card this week is for 10th place, and we've already covered 7 guys. 2 more guys that I believe will probably be inside the top 10, but probably not in the top 5, is Justin Barcia and Justin Hill. That would leave us with 9 positions covered, and now it's time to start looking at who could possibly be that 10th place guy. Definitely could be, you know, Barcia or Hill or any of these other guys we talked about if they have an issue, but realistically, probably not the best choices. So the first guy that comes to mind is Joey Savatgy. He is 10th in the points right now, and he's already finished 10th twice this year. If you couple that with the fact that he's, you know, about your 10th best guy on the track, then it seems like he could definitely be a good pick for the wild card. However, if any of these 9 guys that we just talked about ahead of him have some kind of mistake, end up going out, I would definitely expect him to be finishing up just a little bit higher. So maybe you don't pick him this week with the expectation that he might do just a little bit better. But then again, this next guy we're going to talk about, Dylan Ferrandis, could definitely get in front of him, and that could fill that potential void of somebody who made a mistake, and then he could still end up getting 10th. So anyways, looking at Dylan Ferrandis, he has an average start of 10th place, and he also has an average finish of 10.67. So he's definitely somebody who could be finishing right around that 10th place mark. But if you look at his finishes, they're more all over the board. He's finished as high as 8th twice this year, and he's also finished pretty far back in the pack. Now granted, one of those finishes was when he tangled with Aaron Plessinger, but with all of that being said, I don't know that he's the best pick for the wild card, but he's definitely somebody that could get the wild card. And then there's another guy that we got to talk about who definitely could be a pick for the wild card, and that's Shane McElrath, the teammate of Joey Savatgy. So last week he got 11th, he was just 1 position off, and last year at this same event, he ended up getting 12th. So he definitely feels comfortable on this style of track. He definitely could capitalize on some of the good starts that he's been getting. We've seen him consistently up towards the front and kind of fading back. So maybe if he can get one of those good starts and capitalize on a couple of mistakes, he could just drop right into that 10th place position. Now there is a couple more guys that I could see getting the wild card in Mitchell Oldenburg as well as Colt Nichols, but I don't really think that you should pick them. I'm not going to go into their stats because the stats basically point to you not to pick them, but I just want to mention they're not that far out of that realm. So if you guys want to take more of a flyer, you maybe look at those guys, or go a little bit too high and reach for somebody like Justin Barcia, Justin Hill, Aaron Plessinger, or even Malcolm Stewart. Personally, I think the 3 guys that we talked about with statistics are probably your best bets. But anyways, That's actually all I have on those statistics. So thank you guys. If you made it this far into the video, it really means a lot that you guys stick around for the entirety of the video. And I appreciate each and every one of you for watching my videos and helping me grow this community. It really means a lot. I love motocross, I love supercross, and I love the community that we're growing here. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.